Welcome to the Diaries podcast. This is where we talk about managing your time in ways that helps you accomplish your running goals. Lace up to get your race up. Let's get moving. Hey, what's up everybody out there running on native land, and welcome to the Diaries podcast. I'm your host, Luis, aka Chico, and this is episode number 012345 Thank you for spending some of your precious time listening to the show. I appreciate it. I'm definitely not going to waste it. Lace up to get your race up, and let's get moving. We're at the starting line with this episode's guest, and his running journey began in October of 2015. His mindset, his attitude allows him to break through barriers and personally push his physical limits. He is the founder of the Indigenous Runners Club, and he is the sixth guest on the Diaries podcast. Welcome to the show, Mr. Joel Kennedy.
Hey, Chico. Glad to be on. Just want to introduce myself in the language first. So I'll start with Sagoli Sagweg, Joel Niyungets, Hukwali, Niwigita Lodo, Oida Aga, Niwigo Hajod. So I just said there in the Oneida language is hello, everyone. My name is Joel. I am Bear Clan, and I come from the Oneida Nation.
Yes, I love that introduction. It's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. Time is one of the things in life that we are constantly spending. So we're not going to waste any more time. You gave us your introduction already. Let us know where you're from.
Yeah, so I live in London, Ontario, and it's always a unique thing when someone says, where are you from? Because, I always identify as Oneida Nation. So I'm from Oneida. I live in London, but I was actually born in Alberta, Calgary, actually. So currently work at the Namran Friendship Center here in London, which is a Indigenous organization that works with the community. I am the Urban Aboriginal Healthy Living Program Coordinator, and I also am the Education Section Manager here.
That is amazing. You said Oneida, and is that Oneida of Thames?
Yeah. So there's three different, we're all the same Oneidas. Okay. So there's Oneida, our original homelands is New York State. So Oneida, New York, some people might be familiar with. There's also Oneida, Wisconsin, and then Oneida Nation of the Thames. So there's three. We all started and originated from Oneida in New York State. So
I love it. Hey, so the area you live in now, is that where you were born and raised?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So I was born in Alberta, which is a different province in Canada. Okay. And then I was raised in London, which is really close to Oneida. It's about I would say 20 minutes away. So it's kind of where a lot of their urban Indigenous population, especially from Oneida, live. So,
okay. Yeah. Do you have any siblings? And if so, where do you fit in?
Yeah, so I'm actually the youngest. So I have two older siblings, a sister and a brother. And then I also have two other siblings through my father that live in Syracuse, New York. So I'm the youngest of five.
Oh, wow. Did you play any sports growing up?
Kind of more recreationally for fun. The only sports I would say I played was in high school. I played high school football.
Okay.
Everything else was just kind of recreational neighborhood, just stuff for fun, really.
All right. So high school football, what position did you play?
So I was right tackle. That was on defense. And then, I wasn't never familiar with football. So they actually threw me on offense and stuff. And they just kind of threw me all over the place. But originally I was supposed to be right tackle. Yeah. They'd have issues with some of their other positions. They said, hey, you're playing this position now. So, yeah.
Hey, you got a helmet. Go.
Exactly. Yeah.
There you go. So you're married, you said?
Yeah. We and my wife, we got married in October 2015.
All right.
Yeah.
Children?
Yeah, I have two children. So my oldest is 8 and my youngest is 6. So yeah, older girl and my boy. So
they have any extracurricular activities?
So just before the pandemic hit, we tried to get them into swimming. They really enjoy that, really enjoy the swimming. So we were just getting into the level 1 of their kind of, training. So we were just partway through, so they're almost finished it. So hopefully when everything clears up and we can get back into the pool with them, they can, get back to doing their thing. But, they definitely show an interest in running as well. My boy especially, every once in a while he'll hop on that treadmill and,
There you go. Hey, so your significant other's schedule, what are some tactics that y'all use to make sure you're working together and ensure that you're able to get your training sessions in?
Yeah, so I definitely say early mornings for my long runs is kind of crucial, right? Like, because I
Yes.
usually like to do it on Sunday mornings if I can, but if, family commitments, um, they're very important. So sometimes I'll
Right.
have to do it Saturday morning. So it all depends on, but early mornings are definitely a time. And through this pandemic, we've been home a lot. So I've been really accessing treadmill workouts and doing stuff on that as well, just to kind of squeeze it in wherever I can. There are times where I've been running, 11 o'clock at night just to get that workout
Yes.
in.
Yes.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. A common theme for everybody who's been on my podcast so far is early mornings or late at night. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, I'm the same way. I run in those times as well.
Hmm.
Uh,
One benefit, I guess, is like the Indigenous Running Club that I created that you mentioned. We have weekly meets on Tuesdays, and actually my family comes out to those.
oh,
So I'm
nice.
able to kind of get a run in while they're, either walking or riding their scooters or, sometimes running as well. So that way it's almost like a family activity. So we're all being active together. And that way I can squeeze my training in while they're still out doing their thing. And it's a really good, yeah.
So now you are the Urban Aboriginal Healthy Living Coordinator for the Namarin Friendship Center,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So it was actually interesting. So I've been working at the Friendship Center since 2009. In January is when I started. So when I started, I actually applied for this position. And
Okay.
so funny enough, my wife, she's the one that got the role. So this is before we were together and stuff. It's just,
Yeah.
so I end up applying for another position. I started working with youth. So I
Okay.
started working with youth, did that for a couple of years here. And then there was opportunity to get into the education portfolio. So I applied and got a position within education. And
Yeah.
then I started my journey, and I know we'll get into it later, but when I started my journey, I started getting back into that health. And so once I got back into health, then all of a sudden this job came available again. So again, I put my application in and I was a successful candidate. So it was an interesting transition that originally I tried to get this role. And now that I'm, let's say 12, 13 years later, I'm in this role.
Yeah, definitely. So the Namarin Friendship Center is a nonprofit organization that promotes the physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual well-being of their Oneida Native people. Does that
Mhm.
sound correct?
Yeah, so there's I would say three indigenous communities around here. Oneida is one of them. And there's
Okay.
also Chippewa, which is Ojibwe. And then there's the Lenape, which is like a Delaware. So they're
Okay.
from Muncie. So there's quite a diverse amount of indigenous people that live in the area. And so the Friendship Center, we try to support anyone indigenous. And so
Yeah.
indigenous is First Nations, Métis, and Inuit that we
Yeah.
acknowledge. So yeah, there's lots of different indigenous people that come through the center.
You said you've been doing this since 2009. Is your occupation directly tied to your path to living a healthier lifestyle?
In different, because I look at healthier lifestyles at different aspects. I look at a teaching that I know about the four quadrants. And so we talk about physical health, which a lot of people focus on,
Yeah.
but also the mental, emotional, and spiritual health. So I would say throughout my journey here at Namrand, there's different ways that I improve my health, especially connecting with that spiritual and cultural side,
Yeah.
learning a lot, as I work with the youth, as I work with students, and now transitioning into the health. So absolutely, I would say at different aspects that it improved my overall health.
Well, that's good, man. So between your family, the occupation, and your training, you have a full schedule. So
Hmm.
let's talk about this journey that you're on. Let's begin with your Instagram handle. Let us know what that is so we can follow and support you.
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is Indigenous Runner, so just Indigenous_runner. And funny story about that is when I was looking, because I had a personal Instagram, and then my
Yeah.
brother actually had this other Instagram he was doing. It was just for movies, and it's just
Uh-huh.
like that's his interest. So he was doing all these movie reviews or whatever, and just small scale stuff, right? But
Yeah.
then I'm like, I should do one for running. He's like, yeah, you should. So I end up looking it up, and you know how most of the time you look for some kind of Instagram handle, and you always have to go like say I went for Indigenous runner, I had to put Indigenous runner than a number, but sure enough, there was Indigenous runner. So I'm like, okay, well, there you
Yeah.
go.
Hey, so tell us about this journey that you're on. Give us the full story of how and when did this all begin?
Yeah, so I have to go back to October 2015. So,
Let's do it.
that was kind of the turning point for me because leading up to that, I tried a bunch of different ways to improve my health and more physical. But
Okay.
then I started to notice that I needed to focus on other things before I got into the physical. So one of the toughest things I had to do was accept myself for who I was at that moment. Right.
Definitely.
And so that was the beginning of my journey. And so through that journey, it was actually a friend's dinner that we had. His 31st birthday, we were
Yeah.
having a dinner. I'm 31 at the time. We're, just hanging out, talking,
Yeah.
having dinner. And then we start talking about health. Next thing you know, the discussion around the table starts becoming about diabetes.
Oh.
Now, diabetes is very prevalent within the Indigenous community, especially around here. Both my parents were diagnosed with, became diabetic when they were in their 50s.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it was kind of like, okay, that's something that happens when you're 50, not when you're 31. But here we are, 31 years old, talking about our health problems.
Yeah.
And a couple of my buddies are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And I'm just like, wow, like this was a huge eye opener for me. And that's
Yeah.
where I realized that I ain't diabetic, but I sure am living a lifestyle that's just a matter of time. So that
Yeah.
was like kind of my breaking point at that moment. I'm just like, you know what? I always went through that phase where it's like, okay, I'll start Monday, I'll start tomorrow, I'll start
Yeah.
after this meal. I'm like, no, I'm starting now. So I started that moment right there and then. And it was funny enough, the next day we have a staff outing. You go to staff outings, what's the first thing they do? Hit up the buffet.
There you go.
So day one was like, actually, I guess you could say day two because I started that dinner.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm not going to order all those appetizers. I'm just going to order
Right.
my meal, try to make those changes, no dessert, And I had to really learn about how to balance all that stuff too,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, so the next day we're at a staff outing, buffet. Okay, how do you control yourself at a buffet, right?
Oh, man.
So that's kind of like the beginning of it. So I only estimated I was about 380 pounds at the time
Yeah.
because the last time I weighed myself, I was in the 370s, and I'm just like, I can't look at that number no more. And this
Right.
is August, and this is leading up to October, so I can only estimate I was 380 plus. Yeah. And so, yeah, my journey began. I'm just like, you know what? Like, I just start watching your food intake. Just
Yeah.
start watching that, start decreasing portions. And before, I would do really well with challenges. So I would do like some kind of weight loss challenge, and I would go hard for 8 weeks, go hard for 12 weeks, but then just
Yeah.
fall right back into old habits. And then I'm right back or more than where I started. So
Right.
that was a difficult thing for me, is trying to figure out and navigate what worked well for me. And I was just really thankful that, I finally felt like I was motivated to do it this time and this was the right time. But again, I go back to changing my thoughts around accepting myself first. And that was really hard because in a way I thought, okay, if I accept myself for who I am in this moment, am I giving up on myself? And that was a
Right.
hard thing to process. It's almost
Yeah.
like that's how I felt, was if you accept yourself today, then you're giving up on yourself. But I just had to accept myself. I had to quit living in a thought of, I'm going to be better tomorrow, or I
Right.
used to be better than I was today. So it's really hard to get out of that mindset.
Man, I can imagine. So you said you estimated about 380 pounds.
Hmm.
And how many years has it been since we started? And what are you at now?
Yeah, so I'm just over 160 pounds down. Um,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So I started October 2015 and just kind
Yeah.
of, went through that process of just allowing myself to change those foods and trying to be active. And that was a hard thing at that weight,
Yeah.
was trying to be active. And I did my first 5K is back in 2013. So I did
Okay.
that with my brother. He did his
Yeah.
first half marathon. I did my first 5K. And so after that, like up to 2015, between that 5K 2013 to 2015, I just gained lots of weight. And so going back, I was just kind of thinking, okay, in a mindset, I'm thinking, I can still do that 5K,
Yeah.
I remember going for my walk that first night. My goal was to do 30 minutes. You know, I
Okay.
looked at and recommended time to be active is 30 minutes. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's my goal. I'm just going to go out for 30 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm winded. I can't go any farther. I'm just like, wow, like
Yeah.
and again, it was that process of accepting where you are now.
Yeah,
And that was a
definitely.
hard thing, is like, you have to accept yourself for where you are now, and you can't give up.
Yeah,
Because
definitely can't give up.
yeah, so many times before it was just like, you know what, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And it was true. I could only do, but I had to change my mindset and think about what you can do right now.
Right.
You know, everyone has a starting point. You got to really focus on where you are now. And you got to get out of that mindset of where you used to be or where you want to be again, and just focus on where you are now.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So, speaking of starting points, you started with the Couch to 5K. Can you tell us about this program and how does it work?
Yeah, so leading up, so I'll go back to that 10 minutes of walking. So I increased, and eventually I was walking for, I would say, 50 minutes to an hour. And so I'm just like, there was an opportunity. And so even before I started the Couch to 5K, there was an opportunity to participate in an event. So this is March 25th, 2016. And
Okay.
my goal before I wanted to start running was get below 300 pounds. And I was about, I want to say, around 320 at the time. So
Okay.
there's this downtown 5K event, and I find myself the final participant in this event, you know, and it was kind of a weird situation to be in, because I'm running down the road here, and then all of a sudden I see these flashing lights. I look behind me, there's a cop. I'm like, why is this cop right behind me? And he
Yeah.
was opening up the roads as I was passing them, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so I'd realized, you know, I'm the final participant. You know, and again, there was many times throughout my journey where I'm just like, do I give
Wow.
up here? You know, like all
Yeah.
that, you know, that fear, all that stuff you have to deal with being the final participant. Like, I didn't want to be an inconvenience to someone. You know, I kind of felt some shame. You know, there's a lot of emotions I went through. But again, I'm like, okay, don't give up. Just finish it. Do what you can do. So I end up finishing it, last
Yeah.
participant. But then that motivated me. I said, you know what? I want to do that Couch to 5K program. So that's when I started that Couch to 5K program. And that's kind of a program that's designed to bring someone from where I was, you know,
Yeah.
sure, I could walk a 5K, do a light, you know, jog for the 5K, but really bring yourself up to be able to run a 5K. So it's like a kind of interval style training. So you're doing walking and running. And the first week, I think it's like 90 seconds of running. So it
Okay.
kind of takes out that thought about trying to push too far, because a lot of times people try to say, okay, I want to start running, they just go out and just try to run as far as they
Just
can,
run.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's really kind of build yourself up. So it's a 10-week program that I followed, and I just followed it to a T and just followed the workout, stuck with it. And my goal was actually to come back to a 5K and be able to finish it running the entire distance. You know, I
Heck
wasn't worried
yeah.
about pace, wasn't worried about speed, just worried about being able to run,
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, so in one of your recent posts, you talked about not always having the motivation every day or on every run. And in
Hmm.
those times, you need to refocus on your drive or the reason that you started your journey. Can you talk about this and how you overcome this feeling? Because I know we all experience this at some point in our training.
Absolutely. So yeah, sometimes like I think so, because people, you know, a lot of people on social media, especially, you know, Facebook and Instagram, watch my journey and think I'm just constantly motivated, and that's not always the case. You know, there's
Right.
different times where it's hard to get out there for a run. You
Yep.
know, it's sometimes you got to get out of your mind and just say, like, do you want to do it or not? You know, that's what it comes
Yeah.
down to, you know, and sometimes that run is important and sometimes it's not. But that time where it's important, you need to do it. You just have to get out there and do it. Like, and that's
Yeah.
where I find is like that motivation isn't always there, but where's your drive? Where's your commitment? Where's your dedication? And it's not about anyone else. It's about what's your commitment, dedication to yourself, right? Is this
Yeah.
important to you? Is it important to reach these goals? You know, whether it's to accomplish that first 5K, being able to run the entire distance, are you going to commit yourself to do that? Or whether it's, you know, to improve yourself as a distance runner and finish your first marathon, you know?
Yes.
So that's really, there's so many different levels. And I think it's important for people to know, again, it's not about where you are or where someone else wants you to be or where you want to be. It's about where you are at that moment.
In your running journey,
Hmm.
Do you find external motivation from other runners or other groups of runners, or is this solely a internal fire that's keeping you going?
In a way, like I don't want to sound selfish, but in a way, it is truly is an internal fire. Like I definitely do get motivated, or from other
Yeah.
people, and seeing, especially with the running club, like seeing other people accomplish their goals and go through and push themselves to do some amazing things.
Yeah.
I definitely get that motivation from people, but like I don't know if I can say there's one specific person that,
Right.
yeah. But I would say definitely members of the running club, or just people that I come in contact with. You always you see someone's post, like, hey, that's kind of, inspires you a little bit to get out there,
Yeah.
push a little extra, or,
Right.
whatever.
So after you finished your first 5K back into your journey,
Hmm.
did that finish motivate you to establish brand new goals or improve on your current goals?
So when I finished that, when I came back to running and did that 5K, my goal was to finish 5K running. So
Yeah.
my timeline, and I always try to put timelines on my goals. So my timeline was actually supposed to be that October.
Okay.
So this is April. I'm starting the Couch to 5K program. Come June, I actually finished my 5K, being able to run the entire distance. So I'm like well ahead of my kind of timeline. So I realized
Yeah.
that I still got a good part of the season left. I said, what's next? Do I just try to improve my time? And I thought there was always this run that acknowledged one of the, greatest Indigenous long distance runners. His name is Tom Longboat. And
Yes.
so, yeah, so they have an event in a place called Toronto Island.
Okay.
So I wanted to go there and check that out. And they had a 10K. And I said, hey, what if I try to do this 10K? And it was, doubling distance. I just finished my first 5K running, and now I'm thinking 10K. So I said, you know what, let's try it. So I downloaded another 5K to 10K program similar to that Couch to 5K,
Yeah.
and just was motivated to attempt that. And sure enough, I did my first 10K, finished it. And again, it wasn't about pace, how fast I was going, just being able to run was always been my kind of goal, being able to run the entire distance. And I did it, my first one out.
Heck
So
yes.
yeah, so it was other kind of motivators through the running club that got me to do my first half marathon.
That's awesome. So in a post, you had mentioned that one common question that you get is your weight loss. Did you have surgery? And that
Hmm.
answer is a resounding no.
Hmm.
But because you have such amazing results and they speak for themselves, can you fill us in on your plan of attack?
Yeah, so I think the biggest plan of attack is I have to go back to that mindset. You really have to focus on that mindset, because if you don't change the mind, nothing else will follow. And I feel that's really important, because you can, like, I tried it many times before, trying different things. It just felt like things weren't working. It wasn't until I got my mind prepared to really make those changes that I did. And I focused heavily on improving my eating habits,
Yeah.
and along with my activity. So even before I started running, I was walking, but now the running, and then incorporating different kind of workouts as well after that. But I think it's really important for people to really look at the overall picture too, and kind of lifestyle, because if people ask me what I was doing back in 2015 compared to what I am doing today,
Yeah.
it's a very drastic change, but I didn't make those drastic changes overnight. I made small changes that I could live with. And once I got comfortable with that, I
Small
made
changes.
more small changes. And it was almost like a bunch of small changes. So you can say I eliminated a lot of things throughout my journey, but I didn't do it right
Yeah.
away.
Understandable. So your first full marathon
Hmm.
was 2018 Chicago Marathon.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but between your first 5K back and the 2018 Chicago Marathon, what was your progression like?
So I would say my progression was really focused on being able to run longer distances. And so after I finished that 10K, um, I was actually with the family going to New York City just to do a visit, because my wife's family, like they're from Delaware Nation,
Okay.
Moravian town, and the Lenape is kind of like the name for it. Lenape is the like traditional name,
Okay.
and so they're actually from like Manhattan, New York
Oh,
area,
wow.
right? So we were
Yeah.
doing like a trip home in a sense. So we went with the community. And so I'm going through Syracuse, and all of a
Okay.
sudden I see all these advertisements for this half marathon, and
Yeah.
that's where my siblings live too. So I kind of always had a connection to
Yeah.
Syracuse. And
Okay.
so I said, one day I'd like to do that. So weeks later, I come home. We have these Facebook group pages for the running club, and one of the members says, "Hey, check out this event." And sure enough, they share the Syracuse half marathon. And I was like, wow, like I literally was just looking at that,
Yeah.
So her name's Lorna. And I told Lorna, I said, if you sign up, I'll sign up too.
Heck yes.
So in a sense,
Yeah.
I was kind of putting it on her,
Yeah.
kind of hoping she didn't sign up, but sure enough, she signed up. So I'm like, all right, man of my word, have to keep
Yeah.
my word. So I signed up too. And then we convinced another member, Jared, to sign up with us. And so
Yeah.
the three of us went out to Syracuse, did our first half marathon, and I was just, in a way, I should have been proud of that moment when I finished my first half marathon, but I wasn't. I wasn't in. I had too high expectations on myself, and as I mentioned before, I continued to try to finish runs, running the entire distance. I wasn't able to, so I tried 2 half marathons, and I couldn't run the entire distance. So I knew I had to change something. So I ended
Yeah.
up joining a training clinic here in London, where I live.
Okay.
And I started learning how to train. And this is where I really learned different types of runs, different type of training, and really had an
Yeah.
actual training program that helped me progress, because I was only focused on distance. I didn't know nothing about tempos or speed workouts
Speed.
or,
Yeah.
anything else, pace runs or anything. All I knew was just try to get your body to run farther each time you go out, is what my thought was. And that wasn't a
Yeah.
good, way to train.
Well,
And
so now
so,
that now
yeah.
that you now that you have some knowledge on how to do this, do you have a favorite type of run?
I really do enjoy the tempo runs, because I feel
Okay.
like the way that we kind of run the tempo runs through the clinic was you do an out and back. So you split the distance in half and you go out
Yeah.
easy and you come back, at a tempo pace, right? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of really like I favor, is because, sometimes it's just those days you don't really feel like going out, and then you don't have to push yourself at the beginning. You can use it as a warm up. And by the
Yeah.
time you're ready to turn around, you feel great and you're just ready to go. And so I'd say those tempo runs, are really good.
Have you ever sustained an injury during your running journey yet?
Yeah. So multiple injuries actually. So one of them, so just before the Chicago Marathon, it wasn't actually a running injury, but I ended up tripping in my own driveway, twisting my ankle, and 3 weeks
Yeah.
out of the marathon. So that was quite the experience. And I did have some in 2020. Uh, I didn't actually plan on doing a marathon in 2020,
Okay.
and injured myself. And I was just coming off of what do you call that? Physiotherapist. I just saw a physiotherapist. The
Yeah.
next day, I'm cleared. Okay, return to running gradually, 5K a week. And I'm just like, 5K a week? Like,
Yeah.
how am I going to manage that? And
Yeah.
it was hard. And then also the next day, my friend messaged me and said, "Hey, you want to run the virtual Boston Marathon with me?" And I was like, oh.
Let me see. Registering for the Chicago Marathon, was this always a part of your plan?
Actually, it wasn't a part of my plan. So if I go
All
back
right.
to talking about that half marathon I did in Syracuse, so
Okay.
my third half marathon that I actually did in London. So Syracuse was my first one. So my third half marathon I did here in London, I crushed my goal. I was
Yes.
able to run the entire distance. So I'm coming off a high off of that. And
Yeah.
then the clinic leader, the coach, he asked me, he says, "What do you think about running a marathon?" And I'm just like, oh man, I just finished my first half marathon, where I felt confident. And
Yeah.
I remember asking him, I said, "Do you think I could do it?" And he said, "You know what? You did amazing. This clinic, you put in that work. I have no doubt that you'll be able to do a marathon." And so there's this local event, not really local to be, but within the area. It's called Around the Bay. So it's a 30
Okay.
kilometer run. And he said, participate in that. If you do well in that, then, it's confident I can do the marathon. So I always wanted to do a marathon, but it was a New York marathon. And this goes back to when I was 19, I saw this random MTV special where P. Diddy is training 8 weeks for a marathon. And I never heard of a marathon before that, right? So at 19, I see this and I think to myself, that's a bucket list item. That's one thing I'd like to do one day, is just run a marathon. And so my eyes, I was always one and done, right? So going back when I did my third half marathon, this is 2017, and I knew I wasn't there yet. And I had no plans on, you know, kind of going towards that New York Marathon or anything yet, going that bucket list item. And so when my coach approached me and he says, what do you think about running a marathon? And went through that whole process. He says, like, yeah, because check out the Chicago Marathon. I never heard of the Chicago Marathon at the time. And so he says, check it out. Let me know. You can put your name in the lottery. And, you know, that's hopefully we can get in. And so I never knew about the Abbott World Marathon Majors. I didn't know about, you know, these big marathons. I didn't know about this stuff, right? I knew about New York, and I think everyone knows about Boston. But yeah, so I never knew about Chicago. So I said, you know what, like, let's try it out. So sure enough, I put my name in the lottery, and then all of a sudden my name got selected. And it was such a weird process for me too, right? Because so October, I finished my third half marathon. November, I have to put an application in to run for a marathon for next October. I'm just like, wow, like I've never had to do this process. So it was a really interesting experience for me, like not knowing how big these events are.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, so you finished the Chicago Marathon twice, once in 2018 and once in 2019.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the difference between these two races from your personal experience? Like for you, was one race better than the other?
So absolutely. So 2018, my first marathon, like I said, 3 weeks before it, I injured myself. So I actually wasn't even going to do it because I was injured. So I remember being at the expo the Friday and not even be able to walk around the expo because my ankle's so sore. So I'm sitting there on the side of the wall thinking, how am I going to do this marathon, you know, on Sunday, right? And so I said, you know what, just get yourself to the start line, see what you can do. So I had to push. I really had to push myself. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do because of my injury. I had to change the way I ran, and my legs just got tired after halfway. So it was really one of the hardest things I've had to do, and it's quite the experience I went through. But, you know, again, the main thing about my journey is I don't give up. You know, I didn't give up that run. I finished the marathon. You know, it literally took me over 7 hours to get through that. It was grueling. My goal was actually at the time, I think it was to do it in 5 hours and 30 minutes. You know, that's what kind of I was training for. And then, it just took me over 7 hours. It was so hard, but I finished it. So go forward another year, already I did my long training run. I'm supposed to taper. I don't taper.
Me neither.
I end up doing a couple more races. I burn my legs out. I go into my second Chicago Marathon. I finish it. I was able to shave an hour off, but my legs were burnt out, and it's been a learning process for me. You know, it's been a learning process for me. So, you know, it's kind of been an interesting journey. So even though like I've done, you know, 3 marathons, like I still feel like I'm not really a strong marathon runner, you know, but I don't give up.
Is the course, the Chicago Marathon, is the course the same every year?
Yeah, to my knowledge, yeah. So it was exact same both years I ran it, and to my knowledge, I think it's the same every year.
Okay, so let's talk about aid station stops. When you stop there, what do you like to grab?
Well, on that those marathons, I like to grab that what is it, that cooling gel or whatever it is, that bio thing.
Oh, BioFreeze.
BioFreeze.
Yes. Yes, I carry the little tiny Go packs in when I do ultras and stuff. And when it gets to that point to where like I'm climbing too many hills or my calves are starting to go, I whip that out, man, rub it on the thighs and quads, and start going again.
Yeah. So I think it was the 2019 Chicago Marathon where my legs are burnt out, and so I needed that badly. I remember seeing that aid station where it's just straight BioFreeze, and I was like, you know, I'm just like, just spray me down everywhere on my legs, you know? I don't know if my wife got a picture or not, but I'm literally lifting my shorts up, getting them to spray like everywhere, you know? It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you do come across that picture, I would like to see it posted.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I have to ask her, see if she might think, oh, it's, you know, maybe I don't want to see it, but I'll have to ask her, see
Yeah.
if she has it. Yeah.
All right. What about consumables? What do you eat at the aid station to keep you going?
So I usually bring my own stuff.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll hit the, you know, whatever kind of electrolyte drink they have there. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not really big because I got food allergies, so I'm not really big on just
Oh,
grabbing stuff.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I know a lot of people like to use the gels, and a lot of times they have like the nuts in them or whatever, right? Like a peanut butter
Yeah.
based one. So I really have to be cautious with that. But I'm still trying to learn what works well for me. So I was on the gels, but I switched from gels to chews, and I find the
Okay.
chews are working for me right now. So
Good, good.
yeah, yeah.
In retrospect, knowing what you know now, would you do anything different running these marathons?
I think it's hard for me because I'm not really a person to thinks and lives in regrets or anything. You know, I don't want to really change anything before. You know, the thing I've learned, so going forward, what I did learn from the two is try not to go in with injury. You know,
Oh, yes,
sometimes,
definitely.
you know, you can't control those, but, you know, ideally don't go into injury. And I think
Yeah.
the other thing is don't overtrain. You know, don't
Yeah.
overdo it. Respect the taper, especially because everyone's kind of their own. Like I heard you say, like you don't like to taper and you just like to go, and you know
Yep.
whatever works for whatever everyone. But for me, I feel like I need that rest period to get myself ready for, you know, doing the you know, marathon, and I'll actually be doing my first 50K this year too. So
Yes.
yeah.
Man, you are moving. So here's a question. Are you team stretch before the run or team no stretch?
So I kind of like to do some kind of dynamic warm up of some
Okay.
sort, you know, like I don't really like stretching. Like I look at static and dynamic, so I don't really like to do static stretching before a run. You know, sometimes I will if something's tight, but I really like to use that dynamic. And
Oh
I'm
man, it's been
with the longer distances, I do very minimal. Like if I'm going for like a shorter distance, I'm trying to go for like a, you know, PB or PR, then
yeah.
I'll try to do a good, you know, long warm up. But for long runs, you know, I'm just like, not always, not as much as I probably should.
Yeah. Hey, what kind of shoes you running in these days?
So I kind of switch in between. Right now, New Balance is a 860s, so the stability one is
Okay.
one, and I found a red pair that
Yes.
matches, you know, my shirt. So the Indigenous Running Club. So I'm rocking the Indigenous Running Club shirt here. So
Nice.
I found a pair of red shoes that match it, and this is the first time I ever had a pair of shoes that match the shirt. So, you know, I was pretty excited about that. I did try out the Hokas.
Uh-huh.
So the Arahai. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I tried those ones out, and I'm kind of in the mix because of the drop, right? I got to get used to the drop difference. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So you posted that you hit a running lull before and you used the Around the Bay Hoka Hammer Challenge to pull you out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with all the virtual, because it felt like there was no live event. So the virtual stuff was the only thing happening. And it's almost like I just kind of got into a funk where I just couldn't get out. Like I just, like you said, like that running lull, it just, I don't know what it was. You know, I still can't explain what it was, you know,
Yeah.
today, but it was something, and I couldn't pull myself out. And then I remember the day before I was supposed to do a 30K, and it was a time trial that the clinic I'm part of, they were just hosting it just, I think, for around the bay in a
Okay.
sense at 30K. But
Yeah.
I knew it was happening. I said, you know what? Well, let's get that. And the only way to get a new medal, because they had that cancellation from the previous year. So they're like, okay, they're already giving out last year's medals, which I already had because I already did the virtual last year. So I'm like, the only way to get a new medal is to do the
Yeah.
Hoka One One challenge, right? And so that
Yeah.
was a 2K, 5K. I think it was
10,
10K,
15,
15K,
and
and
30.
30.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the only way to get a new medal is to do this challenge. I said, so I'm game. So I signed up the day before I did my 30K. So I did
Yeah.
that 30K, did a personal best, you know,
Heck
got a
yes.
personal best. And so I said, why not try to see if you do a personal best for every single event? Sure enough, I accomplished that. And so it kind of just really, you know, it was great. You know, I had a really
Yeah.
great, you know, I wish it was in person, but it was still great. It was a virtual event, you
Yeah,
know.
definitely. So the hammer presented by Hoka is where you complete the 2K, 5, 10, 15, and 30K within a month. And then your times for each distance is submitted and we add it together, which you get your hammer time, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you predict your hammer time within 2 minutes, you're entered to get a Hoka prize.
Yes. Yes.
Did you come within 2 minutes of your guess?
No. Everything went well except my 30K. So I thought I was in a good shape to do a strong 30K.
Yeah.
And about 22 kilometers in, I'm just like, nope, this ain't happening. So again, I just had to push myself through the remaining distance, the 8K.
Yeah.
And that was quite quite difficult, but I got it done. And yeah, so that threw off my time. But overall, everything else was pretty much on pace. But that 30K just had a rough time. So
I totally understand. I have plenty of those runs. So you said you ran the virtual for Boston Marathon?
Yeah. That was
how did you do that? Did you pick your own course? Give us the details about this.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember when you mentioned about the injuries, coming off an injury in 2020, I just got cleared again from the physiotherapist. And then the next day, my friend messaged me and says, hey, you want to be a support runner for me for the virtual Boston Marathon? Because she just got accepted into it this year. And this last year, 2020 was supposed to be her first year. And so I said, I'm not really in any shape to do a marathon. I'm just coming off an injury, so I don't know how this is going to go. I remember telling her, I said, if we do it, you're going to be supporting me, then I'm supporting you. And so, it was, but I said, if the Boston Athletic Association approves me to be a support runner for you, absolutely, I'll do the marathon with you.
Nice.
If you don't support me, I'll still go out there and run with you, but I ain't running a marathon. So sure enough, they came back, they approved, and me as a support runner. So some of the perks are you get the finish swag, you get the medal, like all that kind of stuff, just along with the other participants. So I said the only way I can run a marathon is I got to do a loop and I got to have an aid station, because I know there's no way for me to really push myself through that, especially when my physiotherapist says do 5 kilometers and this marathon's 10 weeks away. I'm just like, how do you train for a marathon when you're not able to run? So that's when I broke out my bike and started cycling.
There you go.
Yeah. So I'm like, the only way I can get some kind of endurance on my legs is cycling, because it's low impact and, I can spend long time on the bike. So that's what I did. Leading up to the day of the run, or even before that. So we did a half marathon together just to see where we're at. 18 kilometers in, I'm just like, oh man, how am I going to do this marathon? I can't even finish a half marathon. So, leading up to the day, just said, let's see what we can do. So it was exactly 10.55 kilometer loop. So we had to do 4 loops. First loop goes good. Second loop, feeling good. Third loop, I'm just like, oh man, I could barely finish that third loop. And so I said, the only way I can finish this is honestly, like, I even told her, I said, just go on without, because she's a stronger runner than I was, like she was a stronger runner. And I said, don't let me hold you back, because it was her first time, even though it was virtual, it was still, very meaningful for her,
definitely.
And, I was so glad to be a part of that. But I said, go on. I know you can do strong. You can finish strong. And she's like, no, I want to finish this with you, and I'm just like, wow. So, I was kind of hoping. Just, I was hoping, just go,
Well, she definitely had, both of you guys definitely have the running spirit.
So that final loop, just had to walk. That's all I could do. And then we kind of did a, light jog, and then finished, kind of a run, the last 200 meters or whatever, make the photo finish look good.
Oh yeah. Heck yes. Hey, so you said earlier that you are training for a 50K now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one picked out already?
Yeah, so actually I'm going to be going back to the place where I was born in Calgary, Alberta, and I'll be running there. So,
oh wow, what's the name of the event?
So it's called I think it's called the Calgary Marathon.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the Calgary Marathon. They got the 50K. It's one of the very few road race 50Ks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's actually a 50K road race. So, yeah, I won't be racing it, but I'll be running it.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
How's your training going for that? And when is this event?
So it's actually less than a month away now. So it's,
Woo!
yeah.
Start
So
moving.
I know. Yeah. The training, like, I don't know, like I hit a rough patch, and this was more
Yeah.
mental rough patch than anything. And I just couldn't get out of it. And
Yeah.
so I started off really strong, and then just kind of hit a rough patch. So the way I'm looking at it now is I got a solid base, I
Yeah.
average, I would say, about 1,200 to 1,300 kilometers a year. That's usually what I put on my body.
Yeah.
So right now I'm just under 1,000 kilometers. So I'm like, you know what? Even though I don't have a strong program behind me, like a training program that I, did, I still feel good about where I'm at right now.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm healthy right now. I got a strong base overall. I might not be trained to where I wanted to be, but I still feel confident, about where I'm at. So,
Well, and any time that you need some extra motivation, someone to talk to or anything, feel free to reach out. I'm always here.
all right, yeah, awesome. Because I hear that you're quite the distance runner yourself. So yeah, I can't even. I don't know. Like when I hear about people doing 100K, 100 mile, like it's just, yeah, I can't even think of, like, just it's just amazing.
Well, I was in the same mindset as you one time, and I didn't think I'd be here. So I think you're on the same path as me.
But yeah,
So,
it's just funny to think because, like, I thought I'd be one marathon and done, and here
yeah.
I am, gonna do my first 50K, and I'm just like, what are you doing,
Yep. Hey, so I already know that you cross train and everything. What
hmm
exercises do you find beneficial for your running?
Honestly, that kettlebell workout, like, those kettlebells, they just, yeah, those are just, ever since I started doing those, I
Yeah.
felt huge improvements in my running, and those kettlebell swings, those kettlebell cleans, like all that, just different kind of stabilizing workouts
Oh,
too.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like all that type of stuff. Like I got on these balancing boards, just trying to strengthen my, legs and stabilizing and,
Yeah.
doing those planks and that kind of stuff. Like, absolutely. Like, feel like that's been a huge improvement in my running.
One of the stabilizing exercises that I do is literally standing on one foot.
hmm
And as crazy as it sounds, like when I'm at the grocery store waiting in line, I'll stand on one of my feet and you'll feel your muscles tensing up, trying to keep you balanced.
mm
And it's just one of those things that, I mean, I'm all about time management and using my time as efficiently as I can. And that is one of the exercises that I can do anytime or when I'm just standing around.
Yeah.
So, meal prepping. Do you meal prep at all?
Here and there. Like, I don't do a whole lot of it, but I do.
Yeah.
Like, usually what I do is I make use of, like you said, make use of your time. So if I'm barbecuing, grilling something,
Yep.
I'll cook extra so that way I have a few extra meals, but
Yeah.
I don't like meal prep, like Sunday meal prep for the whole week, but I try to cook extra so that way I have, extra food
Yeah.
at hand.
For me, one of the staples in my diet is literally plain oatmeal.
Mm,
Uh, but I'll meal prep probably about 3 days worth. That
yeah.
that way I'm not eating the same thing for a whole 7 days at a time.
Yeah, yeah, I find, like, I think I guess my staple is like smoothies, like morning. So I was never
Yes.
been, like a morning breakfast person. So I'm
Yeah.
always about that smoothie. Just, that's where you get your veggies in, you get your, your fruit in, some.
All right, we're gonna let Joel, the athlete, stop at the aid station and refuel for a moment. Now let's talk with Joel of the Indigenous Running Club. What was the premise behind founding the Indigenous Running Club?
Yeah, so I go back to 2016. So knowing that I'm gonna train for 3 times a week following that Coach to 5K program, I thought, what if I bring together the community to do this, And
Yeah.
so I have to go back to, so where I work at Namrand, they've had running programs, back when my wife was in the role, going back to 2008, 2009. There's running programs, but the difference was there was no real name to it.
Okay.
They just had, like, learn to run or coach to 5K or whatever have you, right? And
Yeah.
so originally I put out a coach to 5K program, and, like, literally no one showed up. There was one staff member's daughter and my
Yeah.
brother was the only two that showed up. And so I'm like, I have to, rebrand it. I got to do something. So I went back to my buddies and I said, hey, let's come up with a name. And so we ended up coming on Indigenous Running Club. And it was kind of hard to come up with a name, but I knew like Indigenous was good to acknowledge, you know, the different First Nations, Métis, Inuit that we have in our area. So I knew Indigenous was a good name. And then we kind of felt on runners, but at the time I'm like, I don't feel like a runner. I wouldn't identify myself as a runner, whereas running is more like an activity as opposed to, you can't, you know, it's just more of something you can do as opposed to kind of a label, if you will. And so we landed on group, but I felt group was too short term. So then I felt club. So that's where we landed on Indigenous Running Club. And I'm just like, you know what, that name, that's it. So I put it on a flyer, put it out to the community. First night, 19 people show up. So I'm just like, wow, you know, like, So everyone was motivated. The first thing we started off was a Couch to 5K. A lot of us followed that. And there was, of the 19, I think 15 of us finished the program. 12 of us did our first 5K at that, you know, event as a club. So it was just really amazing. And we just grew. So interesting enough, when I talked about that 10K earlier, that 10K was our first kind of destination run. So we went there as a club, went to do that run, especially because it's Tom Longboat, right? Like the Indigenous runner. So we had to, you know, come out. So there were people from his home community of Six Nations, which is kind of close to Toronto as well. So we went out there and we just kind of felt the support. They were happy to see Indigenous runners, especially because it was for Tom Longboat. So they acknowledged his community of Six Nations, as along with us from London, that Indigenous Running Club. So we got these shirts made. We just said, let's just match. So we got these shirts made, right? These are the shirts that, you know, it's shirt I'm wearing today. And we just kind of wanted to match. And then after, you know, everyone did their, I think there was 6 of us that did our first 10K. And then a couple of people did their first 5K, and then a couple others didn't their second or third 5K. So it was just an amazing experience. And then afterwards, everyone's posting on social media, and then all of a sudden, all this kind of influx of people come and say, hey, where can I get one of those shirts? You know, and then that's where it grew. That's where the Indigenous Running Club started to grow. We had people, because the original intent was just to provide a safe space for Indigenous people to come together that can train. You know, that's kind of a welcoming environment for people, because, you know, it's intimidating to go to these clinics or groups that, you know, have established runners, and, you know, it's very intimidating. And so I wanted to create something where it was just something that they'd done in the past as well, give a name to it and just have it grow. And so after that 10K, we just started to grow.
That is awesome. The Indigenous Running Club was recognized by Brooks Running of Canada, and you were able to partner with them for the National Indigenous Peoples Day running event. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so that was, so there's another organization within Ontario. It's called the Indigenous Sport and Wellness Ontario. I was working with one of their regional coordinators, and we were just kind of throwing out ideas. And then they said, what about, you know, Solidarity Day? Like, we kind of know it as Solidarity Day, but it's like, you know, summer solstice, and it's always been kind of a significant day for Indigenous people. And so we kind of threw out the idea, what if we do an event that day? So I'm like, no, let's just make it happen. So I ended up doing a 10-week training program leading up to it. So we had a lot of people that followed the 5K, Couch to 5K program, 5K to 10K program, and the kind of goal race was that virtual run. And so I just kind of started advertising it, and then Brooks just approached me, and they started working with me back in December of last year. They just approached me and said, hey, we see what you're doing. We want to support you and however we can. And so we start working together, kind of unofficially, just kind of working together. And so they've been supporting us here and there. We did a few challenges over the winter. And then leading up to that virtual event, they're like, yeah, let's do it. So they got the name out. We got people from all over. All over Canada.
That is amazing, man. You're doing big things already. And they recently made a donation to the Indigenous Running Club where a lot of your runners were outfitted with a pair of shoes.
Yeah. So one of the people there, I can't remember what their role is, but basically just to kind of demo shoes. So they had all these shoes that they were supposed to demo, but because of the pandemic, they hardly got used. So they said, hey, we got all these shoes. Would you be interested in, you know, seeing if you're members would like some. And I said, absolutely, so they sent them to me, and, I sat on them for quite a while because we weren't meeting in person for such a long time. And then finally, when we were able to meet in person, I was like, hey, here's some shoes. Let's see if we can fit them. So
Heck yes.
yeah, there was quite a few people that were able to, get a pair. And, we actually had visitors from one of the First Nations up north that are dealing with the fires going on.
Yeah.
So their community evacuated, got sent to London. And so I said, hey, we invited them out, but I think they were preparing to leave already to go back home.
Yeah.
So we said, hey, here's the shoes. We sent the rest of them to them and said,
wow.
And then we sent them over that evening, and I got a message the next morning. They're like, we got one pair left, and there's probably quite a few pairs in there. So I'm like,
That's awesome, man.
Great to hear that, they're going to be used. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, does the club have any upcoming training events, training sessions, or virtual events?
Yeah, so we do weekly. So we do a weekly Tuesday evening training session, and this is open. So this is all abilities. People want to come out and walk.
Yeah.
They want to come out and ride their scooters, especially for the kids. They just want to come out and be active. We invite everyone. And so that's every Tuesday in one of the local parks here in London. It's called Greenway Park. So yeah, we do every Tuesday, 6 p.m. We meet, some of us do run together, and others everyone just kind of does their thing. We motivate each other, support each other, hang around afterwards. And yeah, so there was actually this last Tuesday, it's interesting that one of the members approached me and said, hey, would you think about having a half marathon clinic specifically for Indigenous runners? And so it was kind of like they were talking about some of the clinics within London, and they're intimidated. They're intimidated by them. Their paces are really fast. It's just, how do we? And I had some that actually joined some clinics, and they're like, I got the program, but what do I do with it? Like, how do I make sense of this? And I told them, I said, if you ever join a clinic, let me know. I'll help you with all your pacing, whatever I can, right? And this is just talking from experience. I have no coaching certification or everything. I just said, I'll share what experience I've learned over time and absolutely help you with that. And they're like, well, what do you think about running a clinic? And I'm just like, oh, well, I don't know, so I'm kind of sitting on that at the moment, but, if the community wants it, I'm all about offering what the community wants. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, there's another member that says, man, we got to do some track workouts, because they, see some of the speed work I do and stuff. And they said, let's do some track workouts. I said, all right. So I'm in the, trying to find a track for us, like hoping to get a track, but there's lots of tracks around the neighborhoods and stuff, but I want to try to get one of the better tracks at the university. So I'm reaching out to them to see if I can get the track. If I can, we'll do it there. If not, we'll do it somewhere else. But, they want to do some track workouts and stuff too. So just to kind of learn. And that was the biggest thing for me, is just learning how to train, so showing them a different track workout, whether it's just simple 400-meter repeats, or we do a ladder, or we do, whatever we end up doing. It'll just give them a different experience to see, what else you can do with your running.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, how can other runners find and join your group?
So I would say there's different ways. So we have a Facebook group. Like, we do have Instagram, but I'm not the greatest with social media. So like, our Instagram doesn't have that much action. Like, I try to share what I can, but I would say our Facebook group has a little bit more. But we also have a Strava club, so Indigenous Running Club on Strava. So one of the members actually created that. So there's just a bunch of us on there. Yeah, it's just kind of good to see other members, what they're doing and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So any of the listeners out there, if you're interested in joining the club, I'll post the details in the description. All right. So of all the medals that you have earned so far, do you have a favorite, or is there one that means more to you than the rest?
I would say this one right here.
All right. Tell us about it.
This is my first Chicago Marathon medal. So just my journey. Like, I never knew where it would lead, and like I said before, I had that kind of bucket list of finishing a marathon, but I never knew I would be able to do it, so it just means so much to me. Just, if you told me in 2015 you'd be running a marathon in, less than 3 years, or exactly 3 years, like, I never would have believed you. But it's just such an experience, like.
Yeah. Well, you're doing great. And I think you're inspiring so many people, because I definitely know that you are inspiring me.
I greatly appreciate it. And I just, I think it's great to connect with so many different people. And like I said, I am inspired by people, and just seeing the distance that you do and, what you're able to accomplish is just, makes me feel like, okay, yeah, I can do this, especially this
Yeah,
50K that's
definitely.
coming up, like I can do it.
You got this, man. Hey, so is there anything we need to touch base on or expand on before we move into the next section?
No, I think we're good. I, appreciate the opportunity, kind of share my journey and stuff. And I'm,
Yeah,
happy to,
definitely.
yeah.
All right, so the next section is called the 5 to Stay Alive. These are the questions that I ask every guest about themselves and what keeps them going. Joel, are you ready for the 5 to Stay Alive?
No, I'm ready.
All right, question number 1. Do you run with or without music? And if so, what is one power song that is on your running playlist that motivates you?
All right. So I'm a runner with music. So, sometimes I like to keep it low so I can still keep, track of my surroundings. But absolutely, I like to run with music.
Yeah.
One song. So I have to go back to when I finished my first 5K running. So I was sitting there waiting for the warm up to start.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the song comes on, and it's called, so he was formerly a Tribe Called Red, but now they're called the Hallucination. And
Okay.
so the song is called Sisters with Northern Voice. And it's just an upbeat song. That's what they use for the warm up. And just, I remember being in that event and getting ready to do it. I'm like, all right, I have to download the song before it starts. So I downloaded the song, added it to my playlist that day. And it's kind
Yeah.
of been in the mix since. So definitely a good song.
Awesome. So we're going to get that put on the Run True Diaries Spotify page, and that song is going to be a representation of you. Question number 2. What are some things in your life that have positively changed since you've started running?
Oh, man, it's been such a growth. Like, it's been a huge growth for me, just kind of like growth everywhere I can think of,
Yeah.
whether it's growth through the community that has, brought together through the running club. My health has definitely changed overall, becoming a
Yeah.
distance runner. There's just, so much, that I could say, and I'm just really thankful for everything that's in my journey.
Question number 3. In your opinion, what is one thing that an athlete should avoid in their journey to becoming a better runner?
I would say avoid comparing yourself to anybody.
There you go.
Do you.
Yes.
Do you.
Question number 4. Finish this statement. When it comes to long distance running, Joel cannot leave the house without his...
I would say watch. It's not on Strava. It didn't happen. No.
No, totally true. What kind of watch you rocking?
I got the a Garmin Instinct. So
All right.
I'm a frequent shopper at Costco. So whatever they got on sale there is my go-to.
I'm Team Garmin as well.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah.
Question number 5. Do you have a running mantra?
One thing that I really like to do when I'm running is just giving thanks. So a
Yeah.
simple thing that I say is like, and that's just thank you to the creator. I always give thanks and acknowledgement, just being able to do what I'm doing. And that really kind of grounds me when I'm running, because sometimes we get into those thoughts about, how difficult the run is and stuff. And it just really helped ground me thinking, just be thankful where you are now and what you're able to do.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. We've reached the end of this episode. Is there anything you want to add before we close this episode out?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity just to kind of share my journey, and I really appreciate us connecting on Instagram, and being able to connect, because like I'm all the way in London, Ontario, and being able to connect with you is just great. And so really appreciate it.
Who knows, there might be a run up there pretty soon that I can hit, and we can run together on this one.
Yeah. I don't think I'll be able to keep up with you, but absolutely. I think eventually when I'm able to travel, I'd love to come to different communities and just run with different, people. Absolutely.
All right, Joel. Thank you for agreeing to be a guest on the show. Your self-belief, hard work, and perseverance is evidence that those are the pillars of personal success and great results. Your journey is definitely one that will continue to grow and continue to inspire other runners. It's taught us that we should never give up what we want in life for what we want right now. Thank you for the motivation and inspiration, my friend. You have our continued support in this journey that you're on.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for those words. It truly means a lot. So
And definitely, You have a good day, and we'll see you on the trails, my friend.
All right. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir. We're approaching the finish line, but before we cross, here's some news and views. That was the founder of the Indigenous Running Club, Joel Kennedy. One question that I often receive is how to run for weight loss. I usually give them a metaphorical story about Legos, using one small piece at a time to stack them up and build a strong foundation. But Joel's experience is a far better example to follow. Through this conversation, he's taught us that if your goals seem too difficult or too distant to achieve, that's okay, because it shows that you're challenging yourself, and challenging yourself is okay. Changing the way you think or eat or train just because the old ways aren't working for you is okay. But never give up on something that you believe in just because it's hard. But if you want to accomplish your goals, that starts today. With a commitment, with time, with effort, and asking yourself the one simple question, are you going to make today count for you? Because that's all we can do. Here's Joel.
I remember going for my walk that first night. My goal was to do 30 minutes. You know, I looked at and recommended time to be active is 30 minutes. And so I'm like, okay, that's my goal. I'm just gonna go out for 30 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm winded. I can't go any farther. I'm just like, wow. Like, and again, it was that process of accepting where you are now.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that was a hard thing, is like, you have to accept yourself for where you are now, and you can't give up.
Yeah, definitely can't give up.
Yeah, so many times before, it was just like, you know what, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And it was true. I could only do, but I had to change my mindset and think about what you can do right now. Everyone has a starting point. You got to really focus on where you are now. Because if you don't change the mind, you know, nothing else will follow. And I feel that's really important, because you can, like, I tried it many times before, trying different things. It just felt like things weren't working. It wasn't until I got my mind prepared to really make those changes that I did, and I focused heavily on improving my eating habits. But I think it's really important for people to really look at the overall picture too, and kind of lifestyle, because if people ask me what I was doing back in 2015 compared to what I am doing today, it's a very drastic change, but I didn't make those drastic changes overnight. You know, I made small changes that I could live with, and once I got comfortable with that, I made more small changes. I eliminated a lot of things throughout my journey, but I didn't do it right away.
Hey Joel, thank you again for the conversation, motivation, and inspiration. Stay the course, keep moving, and keep improving. We're going to end this episode on that motivational note. And so with that, we have crossed the finish line. So if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or guest recommendations, contact me at runshoot.diaries@gmail.com. Again, that is runshoot.diaries@gmail.com. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Keyword search Run Shoot Diaries. Thank you for listening to the Run Shoot Diaries podcast, episode 6 with Joel Kennedy. Until next time, remember that with each step comes the decision to take another. So keep putting one foot in front of the other, because it's amazing what you can do on your own 2 feet. I'm out.